Diocese of Peoria, Illinois announced Monday that Venerable Fulton Sheen will be beatified December 21st at the city's Cathedral of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception. Sheen had been ordained a priest of the diocese in that same cathedral on September 20th of 1919, 100 years ago. Peoria Diocese said, quote, "It seems entirely fitting that the beatification will take place at the end of this 100-year anniversary of his ordination to the priesthood." And we are honored to have joining us to talk about this exciting news Dr. Peter Howard, one of the world's leading scholars on Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen and the founder of the Fulton Sheen Institute. Dr. Howard, good morning. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Dave. It's great to be with you on this beautiful Friday.
Yeah, so how did the news hit you on Monday? Were you kind of expecting this, or it's got to been exciting to receive this news this week about so one of your great heroes?
Yes, it was very exciting, but honestly, I was blindsided by it. My insiders didn't reveal anything to me, so they kept a close lip on this because once they postponed it from the fall, I figured, maybe springtime when his birthday was, early May. But then when I learned the reason why, it made a lot of sense too. And I think that, one of the big reasons is they want to be able to have his niece, who was very pivotal in bringing his body to Peoria, to be able to attend, as she gets older. And, they want to be, they really want her to be present at that.
Yeah. Talk about the process a little bit. I always find it fascinating about how one becomes a canonized saint, and you go from venerable to blessed, and then a saint. Miracles are involved. The process itself. Can you speak on that a little bit, and what had to happen to get to this point?
Sure. Well, it all goes back really to around 2002 when the Diocese of Peoria they took on the initiative of submitting what they call his cause, presenting an argument for why Fulton Sheen should be a saint. And so once Rome gives the approval that they can begin that process, then they just start gathering all the information of everybody who ever knew him that they can, get access to, interviews of family members, friends, contemporaries. They go through every single thing he's ever written and said. So you can imagine that task. And then they collect all this together. They send it to Rome, and then Rome summarizes it as well, and then they basically say, did this man live a life of heroic virtue and charity and other things? And if they say yes, then they declare him to be venerable. He's worthy of veneration. And then at that point, they wait for it. If there's a miracle that's been submitted for somebody who's prayed to Fulton Sheen, and it goes through a rigorous process of a medical examination board, who then has to declare that the miracle really had, there was nothing that can explain it in modern science. And then they send it to a theological board in Rome, who then reviews it as well. And if all that goes through, then they send a recommendation to Pope Francis saying that there's clearly a miracle that says this man is before God in heaven and he's interceding. And so Pope Francis just has to sign it. And if he does, they set a date for beatification, which is where we are today.
Yeah. And
then after that, they repeat the process of the miracle again for canonization.
Yeah. Phone number 877-757-9424. We're talking about the exciting news this week that Archbishop Fulton Sheen is going to be beatified December 21st, right before Christmas in Peoria, Illinois. My guest is Dr. Peter Howard, a leading scholar on Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen and also founder of the Fulton Sheen Institute. When and why did you become such a devotee of Archbishop Fulton Sheen? What is it about his life, his writings that appeals so much to you, Dr. Howard?
Well, it takes me back 20 years. I had heard of him, and I was in Dallas, Texas, so in your territory, and I just felt the call to take a retreat one weekend and then discern my call in life. And my sister said, why don't you listen to these tapes of Bishop Sheen? They changed our pastor and made him the priest that he was, and he had just died of cancer. I said, wow, that sounds interesting. I have a 3-hour drive. I'll put him on. And just that little yes to doing that radically changed my life. And so I knew that this man was going to be a big part of my future, and that really just sparked a whole nother chapter. Really, the second half of my life has all been formed directly by this great man.
Yeah, and he did so much, and it's kind of hard, even in the time that we have to do this interview now, to talk about his contribution to the church, not only in America, but he was a bishop of several dioceses, and radio host, TV host, prolific author, speaker, amazing life that he lived. You have zeroed in somewhat as an expert on his Mariology, and I'm thinking of the book that Fulton Sheen wrote called The World's First Love, Mary, Mother of God. Speak on that a little bit. What was his particular contribution in this area of theology?
Sure. Well, I think that book is the best book on Mary I've ever read, and obviously, I've read a lot. Sheen's contribution, the more I've reflected on it, is that he has had such a penetrating insight into really what has become this message of Fatima. In other words, like how Mary is essential when it comes to the holiness of one's soul. When he was a bishop, his Episcopal motto was, grant that I may come to you through Mary. And that was a big key to everything that he did. He said, if you want to convert a soul, pray to Mary. And what the World's First Love, though, does, it introduces us to Mary in a way that all these other theological manuals, they don't do. If you really encounter Mary deeply in the mystery of Christ and Scripture, non-Catholics can read his works and discover the whole mystery of Christianity through the lens of Mary in a whole new way. So I think that's probably his greatest gift, is just to bring us, to connect us to Mary really as our mother in a way that we just can't find in those books.
Hi, Dr. Howard. This is Sissel. I've always been fascinated by Archbishop Fulton Sheen just simply because he seemed to just draw on people who maybe you wouldn't think that would want to listen about the Catholic faith and stuff like that. I know my dad, he kind of, in his teen years, he stopped practicing his faith, but he always enjoyed listening to Archbishop Fulton Sheen in his radio show. And I recently heard that, like, Humphrey Bogart, he knew him. And why do you think he, attracted so many interesting people from different walks of life?
Well, I think two reasons. One is that Fulton Sheen was such a real person. He had such a gift of connecting with people, and that was really at the heart of his own evangelization. He said it himself. He said that the way that we're going to reach people today is to speaking to their hearts, not so much to their heads. And when it came to how he evangelized, he talked about these phases. He says, in the 30s and 40s when he was on the radio, he did a lot of direct Christian doctrine teaching. But once he got on TV, his audience changed to, predominantly non-Catholics, Jewish people, Protestants. And he said, I had to find a way to start with a common denominator that everybody could understand, and then take, kind of launch from that point and take them all the way to a divine truth. So he'll start talking about like aviation, and by the end of this televised broadcast on ABC, he's talking about angels. He'll talk about the happiness that man wants, and then he'll start pointing, to some of the miseries of life or the threats of communism, and all of a sudden he'll take them to how living our Christian life is the only answer that's going to provide fulfillment. And this resonated with audiences, even if they didn't quite agree with him. They all could say that they understood exactly what he meant. And those who were open to it found that, it really was a grace that changed their lives. Yeah, speaking of the people that were impressed by him, Martin Sheen changed his name to Sheen because of Fulton Sheen. I think that's true. Dr. Peter Howard joining us. A few minutes remaining. If you have a question, 877-757-9424. Archbishop Fulton Sheen will be beatified in Peoria, Illinois on December 21st. Very exciting. And Dr. Peter Howard also is available to visit parishes and dioceses or your group and speak, and we'll tell you more about that in just a moment, how you can invite him. And one of the talks that Dr. Howard gives is called Life is Still Worth Living. And I'm reading the little information on this, and it says Dr. Howard dives deeply into Sheen's thought, reflecting on the current cultural chaos affecting the family, individuals, and the church. We've talked a lot about this earlier in the show today. What would Archbishop Fulton Sheen say today about the chaos in the world and the church if he had a radio program? And we'd love to have him on the Guadalupe Radio Network if he wanted to show. But what would you say about that, Dr. Howard? Well, I think he would say what he said back in the 1930s and 40s. If you look at what he said back then, during the Second World War and afterward, he basically kept saying it's a very simple answer to, or I could say a very simple analysis of the cause. He says the world is abandoning God, and when you do that, you unhinge everything else: your values, your purpose, even the greatness of a country. Families are going to fall apart, and so put it simply, he's like, your life is going to be worth living. You're going to find a fulfillment and purpose in your life only and only if you have God at the center of that. And so, I mean, it sounds almost like an oversimplistic answer, but that really is what it is. He would say communism, all the things that are threatening us today, we don't use that word in the West that much, but he would say that's exactly what's behind the philosophies of things: attacking the family, attacking the church, attacking, getting God out of things. All of these is because we have really lived unfulfilled Christian values in society.
Dr. Howard, we got about a minute and a half remaining, and I want to cram into that minute and a half. You referred to two weapons that Archbishop Fulton Sheen talks about in growing in holiness, and I wondered if you could tell us those. You may have to do it kind of quickly, and also please let people know how they can book you for coming to their parish or giving a talk. If you can cram all that into a minute and a half, we'd appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. Well, first, you can easily get me to your parish or event just by going to FultonSheen.Institute, and it'll take you right through how to do that. As far as Fulton Sheen's two weapons, very simple. It was our Blessed Mother, bringing her in to every conversation, in particular the rosary, something that he took from Fatima, saying that is one of the weapons that is going to be the most powerful in converting a soul. And the other one is going to be his 60-year commitment to making a daily holy hour before our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. He made that promise the day he was ordained, and he never broke it for 60 years. And he says, if you want power in your preaching, in your counseling, in anything that you do in life, he says, that's where you're going to find it. And so if we want to bring this world back to God, these are two weapons that'll really be a strong catalyst to make that happen.
Awesome. Very good. You got it all in. So thank you so much. Dr. Peter Howard, one of the experts in the world on Archbishop Fulton Sheen. You can email him events@FultonSheen.Institute or go to FultonSheen.Institute and find out how you can bring him to your parish. And I think in the coming years, we're going to want to learn more and more about this amazing man, Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Dr. Howard, thanks for your time this morning. Great to speak with you.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.